malware. So mobile means your phones. Your maximum usage will be with respect to the mobile. So in new generation, smartphones, many smartphones have come out. So smartphones combine the functionality of a cell phone and a loose end PC. So it will both act as a cell phone as well as the PC. All the facilities or all the services which can be provided by the personal computer, now it is available on your smartphones itself. So it can be used for storing confidential documents, or it can be used for communicating communication purpose. You can send email, SMS, MMS, and taking photographs, videos. So many services are available in your smartphones nowadays in the new generation. So they support rich applications, feature rich applications that run on top of a complete operating system. So you will be having an operating system which is going to support all these things, all the applications to run. So your mobile operating systems, different mobile operating systems like Android, all those kinds of operating systems are available. A well featured operating system like rich kind of applications are available, so which are going to run on top of this complete operating system. So the most common operating system on smartphone is the Symbian, followed by Windows Mobile, Linux, or recently Mac OS X on the iPhone. So these are all the well-known, the most common operating systems available in the smartphones. So they are going to provide you with a rich set of APIs. So to access the phone book and other files, you can send SMS, you can send MMS, like you can send video, you can send images, all these things. So all these APIs can also be used by malware too. So these kinds of APIs for a good purpose also you can use, and these kinds of APIs sometimes unfortunately it can be used by malwares also. So for example, read a confidential document on the smartphone. You have some confidential document which is stored in your smartphone, and that confidential document can be read using these APIs and ship it to our attacker, or some attacker as an attachment, so that our confidential document can be sent to some attacker also. So this is mobile, that is mobile malware. So how exactly this is going to happen in the smartphones or mobile means, the first thing is Bluetooth. So this is one of the application which you will be using in your smartphone. So Bluetooth can be is both for both a communication technology and a protocol stack. So you have heard Bluetooth as a protocol also. It can be used as a communication technology. So as a communication technology, that means Bluetooth, if you are going to consider as a communication technology, what are the facilities you are going to avail with that? So with the help of Bluetooth. So it supports short range wireless communication. So Bluetooth supports short range wireless communication. So maximum of between 10 to 100 meters between the devices. So two devices you need to connect with each other. So maximum of between 10 to 100 meters distance it should be there. It's a wireless communication. It is going to support wireless communication. And Bluetooth uses 2.4 gigahertz shortwave radio technology. So what technology the Bluetooth uses means, it's a 2.4 gigahertz shortwave radio technology. It makes use of radio waves or radio technology. So Bluetooth is a complex multi-layered protocol. So it is going to have some layers in the protocol, as you know, protocol layers like that. Bluetooth is also going to have a complex multi-layered protocol. So how exactly the discovery and user authorization is going to happen in the Bluetooth? So already you are aware of that. You might have used Bluetooth technology many times to communicate with the other devices. How you are going to discover the device, as well as you are going to do the user authorization. So many PC users do not hesitate to click, like suppose um, social engineering is a key factor in the spread of mobile malware, because the users who are going to use these mobiles, even though they know all these things are going to happen, all these vulnerabilities are available, all this attacking is going to happen, so all the information they are aware of, but social engineering is going to spread a mobile malware in a very quick way, because many PC users, they will not hesitate to click the links, hot links in their email, so or open the attachment even when the sender of the email is unknown. So you don't know who has sent that particular email. Just by seeing that heading of the email, getting attracted to it, you just click on that email, or an attachment, some attachment would have come to your mail ID, so which is from the unauthorized person or some other unknown person. So even then attracting towards it, So all the users, what they'll do is, without thinking, they are going to click on that kind of attachments or emails. So this kind of behavior carries over to the mobile also, mobile world. So you were doing in the internet world, that means email world. So now it is being, the behavior is carried out over to the mobile world also, where many users have no hesitation in accepting a file from an unknown source. So from so many unknown sources, messages will come, or some pictures will come, images will come, some videos will come. So what the user will do is, without any hesitation, they will accept, or they will click on that, and they'll open it and see what the content is. So they accept a file from an unknown source. So the combination of Bluetooth implementation and vulnerabilities, then rich feature set of the smartphone, and unthinking user behavior. So all these combined together. So whatever the Bluetooth implementation drawbacks or flaws are available, and then rich feature set of the smartphone. Smartphone is going to provide you with a rich feature set, and also unthinking user behavior. So users will not think, without thinking, they are going to click on or receive that kind of files. So unthinking user behavior, all these three combined together has exposed the smartphone to various strains of malware. So combining all these drawbacks, so your smartphone is exposed to the malwares. To investigate the spread of malware in smartphones, it is necessary to understand the basics of how smartphones exchange files using Bluetooth. So before knowing how the malware spreads in smartware, so it is necessary to understand the basics, like how the smartphone exchanges files using Bluetooth. So to discover other Bluetooth enabled devices in its neighborhood, a device initiates an inquiry procedure. So you are aware of that. So one device wants to connect with the other device using Bluetooth. You are going to just send a request kind of thing, inquiry procedure, which includes broadcasting an inquiry request. So all devices in the range, within that range, particular range, all the devices which are Bluetooth enabled of the initiator that are in discoverable mode. So they have kept that their smartphones in the discoverable mode, respond sending their Bluetooth device address. So you can see in your smartphone, whenever you switch on the Bluetooth, and you are trying to connect to some other device, it will show you a list of devices, name list of devices which are within that particular range. In their phones also Bluetooth is on, so they are discoverable. You have discovered many addresses of the devices. A list will come to your phone. So in that you will select whichever the device you want to connect with. So that is called as BD underscore address, Bluetooth address. So the device address. So that address will come, Bluetooth device address will come, sending their Bluetooth device address to you, the initiator, whoever has initiated the discoverable process to that particular device. All the Bluetooth device addresses will come. So that address is a 48-bit MAC address. So the address will be a 48-bit MAC address. In that, first 24 bits identify the device manufacturer or the model. So in that 48-bit MAC address, first 24-bit is going to identify with device manufacturer or the model, and the last 24 bits specify the particular instance of that particular model. So Bluetooth is a connection oriented protocol. So you're going to consider Bluetooth as a connection oriented protocol. So a device A can set up connection to any other device B, but to set up such a connection, A should know the Bluetooth device address of B. So you need to have the connection between device A and device B. So how that connection is going to happen between device A and device B means, so A should know the Bluetooth device address of B. So the other devices address, Bluetooth address, it should be aware of. So how to obtain that address of the device B? So one way of obtaining B's Bluetooth device address is through the discovery procedure. So as we discussed in the previous, so you will be having a discovery procedure. So wherein the initiator is going to send a request message. So whoever are the devices nearby within that range, their Bluetooth device addresses are going to be listed out in the A's, that means initiator's phone. So one way of obtaining that address is through the discovery procedure. A large percentage of users keep their phones in discoverable mode. So they will not be looking into all these aspects. So knowingly or unknowingly, they will keep all these things open. So their Wi-Fi connections, their data connections, or their Bluetooth connections, everything they'll switch on and keep it in the on mode or discoverable mode only. So this is an attractive way of harvesting device addresses, especially in crowded areas. So if you go to a crowded area, so there it will be very easy to get that device address, Bluetooth device addresses very easily for an attacker, especially for an attacker in a crowded areas such as railway stations or malls like that. So however, it should be noted that even with the phone in non-discoverable mode, there are a number of brute force techniques to extract its Bluetooth device address. So even if you are not keeping your phone in the discoverable mode also, there are many techniques, many brute force techniques or the algorithms the attackers are going to use to extract its particular address. So Bluetooth device address. So once knowing B's Bluetooth device address, A could attempt to exchange files with it using the OBEX protocol. So once A gets the B's address, B is a device which A wants to communicate with. So he has got the Bluetooth device address of B. So now A wants to exchange files with B. So using the protocol OBEX, Object Exchange Protocol. So it is a session protocol that resembles similar to HTTP protocol. So this OBEX protocol is used to transfer images, business cards, and other files between Bluetooth devices. So this is designed especially for Bluetooth devices. It's similar to HTTP protocol. So OBEX is going to be used for transferring your files, images, all the other different kinds of files between the Bluetooth devices. So now suppose an attacker A. So you assume an attacker A could use OBEX push to transfer a file containing malicious code to user B. So there is some malicious file. So what attacker A wants to communicate or send it to user B. So now user authorization is usually required before a file can be accepted by his smartphone. So whenever the receiver B wants to receive that particular file which is sent by A, so you will get one notification or one message, would you want to accept this file or like that. So if you click yes only, if you authorize, authenticate that, then only that file will be downloaded to your system. So that user authentication or authorization is usually required. So before a file can be accepted by the receiver's smartphone. So each user is going to select a pin. So you will be having some pin value which varies between 4 and 16. So usually 4 characters are used typically. So the smartphone usually is going to prompt a user to enter his or her pin as a way of confirmation whether an external file should be accepted or not. So you have to put that number, then only that file will be accepted. So some operating system versions are going to accept file transfers without user authorization. So they will not have this user authorization process only. Simply whatever the files which comes from the sender side. So it can be an attacker or it can be a real sender. So whoever it might be, whatever the files it comes without authorization required, some operating system directly transfers the files to the destination or the receiver side. So some smartphones allow users to disable the authorization required operation for file transfers. So what operating systems are going to do is some smartphones, they'll give that option also to disable the authorization process. So what users will do, every time I need to put the pin, whenever the file comes, I have to put the pin, he gets irritated, he goes to that and he disables that authorization required. So without authorization only, whatever the files they want to transfer, it will come onto the receiver's smartphone. So this makes the attacker possible to send his malware files to the smartphones using Bluetooth technology. So what's the protocol used for that? Means OBEX is the protocol which is used for transferring the files in the Bluetooth connected devices. Then how we are going to give the security for this particular kind of communication or transfer which will happen between the devices using Bluetooth technology. So we have a concept called as link level security. That means the level of security provided by user authorization alone is generally inadequate. That means only by using this user authorization process or procedure, just by putting some PIN numbers or giving authorization is not enough. It's generally inadequate or it's not enough. So another level of security is also required. So it is provided by Bluetooth is link level authentication and encryption. So what is the another level security which is provided by Bluetooth is, it is nothing but link level authentication and encryption. So for this purpose, both sides compute a common secret called as the link key. Both sides means A and B. So sender and receiver. So for this kind of purpose, both the sides has to compute a common secret called as link key. So Bluetooth, it uses a procedure called as pairing. You would have observed all these things in your mobile devices. Pairing is going to happen. So Bluetooth, it uses a procedure called pairing, wherein this key is computed by two participating devices. So whoever the two participating devices are available, so those two participating devices are going to compute this particular key, link key. So pairing is preceded by discovery or inquiry and paging. So the latter is a procedure whereby the discovering device A establishes a connection with the discovered device B. So how you are going to compute the link key? What are the steps or the procedures you have to use for creating or computing the link key? So the first step, step 1, computing the link key. In that step 1, the first step in deriving the common link key between A and B is to compute an initialization key called as K-init. So, sorry. So the first step in deriving the common link key between A and B is to first compute the initialization key called as K-init. So how you are going to generate this K-init or K-initialization or initialization key? So that is explained here. So it is a function of Bluetooth device address of B and a nonce, a challenge that is in random number, some random number generated by A. So A is going to generate some random number or a nonce or a challenge which is called as in rand. So with that, it makes use of Bluetooth device address of B. So with these two values, some function is going to be applied. So you're going to apply some function on the Bluetooth device address of B and a nonce value, some random number which is generated by A. So if you apply that functionality, then you are going to generate the key, K-init key. 1 second. This is the creating the initialization key. This is that. So Bluetooth device address B. So that address, 48-bit address you will take. Then you will take the pin and then the nonce value will take. So you're going to generate the K-init. So Bluetooth device address B. So you're going to use E22 as some protocol here. So with the help of that, you will be generating the initialization key. So this diagram shows that. So how you are going to generate the initialization key, that is K-init. So that is the first step. In the first step, you are going to generate that K-init. Then before the pairing procedure, the owners of A and B. So before the pairing procedure, the owners of A and B must agree in an offline manner on a temporary pin to be used specifically as part of the pairing procedure. So both A and B, user A and user B, they have to agree between each other. So in the offline manner for a temporary pin. So this will not be a permanent pin, it will be a temporary pin which should be used specifically as part of the pairing procedure. When you are going to do the pairing, so in that procedure, you have to use this temporary pin. So both the users then type in the temporary pin. So they are going to type the temporary pin. So then K-init is also a function of this temporary pin agreed to by both parties. So both the parties have agreed one pin. So that pin also they will type. So whenever you are generating initialization key, that K-init, that also considers this pin agreed by both the parties. So now K-init is computed from in rand, that is a random number or nonce, then Bluetooth device address of B, and then pin use a pin number, whatever the pin number you have agreed upon between both A and B. So that pin value also will be considered. So now it is a function of Bluetooth device address of B and a nonce as well as pin. All these three combined together. So you will put some function on that and you are going to generate the initialization key. And for that you are using an algorithm E22. So E22 is the algorithm which is going to be used for generating your initialization key K-init. So this E22 is based on a block cipher called as Safer Plus. So by making use of this E22 algorithm, you are going to generate the key. So Bluetooth device address, and then you will be having some nonce value, and then you will be having that pin number. So you use E22 and then you are generating a key, K initialization key. So initialization key or K init. So that is the first step, computing the link key. Then second, in the second step, you have to compute the link key. In the first step, you have generated only the initialization key. In the step 2, you need to compute the link key. So A and B, each one generate a random number, LK underscore rand A and LK underscore rand B. So some random numbers, both A and B are going to generate random numbers. So for A as well as B, random number A and random number B. So link key random A, so link key random B. Then each party performs an XOR operation of its random number with, and they each transmit this across. So each party is going to perform an XOR of its random number, and then each one transmits this across to the other one. So each side recovers the other party's random number by performing again an XOR of the received value with K init value. So you have the initialization key value. So whatever the value it is been received from the one side in the other side, so it is going to discover or recover the other party's random number by performing again an XOR operation of the received value with K initialization value. So now each side has a link key random A, link key random B. So A has random A, B has random B. Both exchanges these two values. So now both the parties have both the numbers. So random number A, random number B is available with A. Same way random number A and random number B is available with B also. And also the device address. Two device addresses are available with each other. So Bluetooth device address A and Bluetooth device address B. So now then they perform identical operations on these to obtain the link key. So KAB is the link key. So they are going to perform some operations on these values, that is random A, random B, then Bluetooth address A and Bluetooth address B. So on this they are going to perform some operations and they are going to obtain or get the link key called as KAB. So the operations involves the use of an algorithm E22. So for this, which algorithm is used means E22, which is like same as E22, which is based on the cipher Safer Plus. So here they are not discussing what E22, 21 and 22 algorithms are, just they are specified they are using E21 and E22 algorithms for generating this link key and initialization key. So thereafter each device stores the pair, that is Bluetooth device address of the other device and the newly computed link key in a database. So they are going to store this pair, that is Bluetooth device address as well as the link key which is generated, that KAB value. So each device maintains such a database of Bluetooth device address, then link key pairs, one pair per device it is paired up with. So you can see this in this diagram. See, this is the diagram, A side and B side. So link key random A, this is a random number generated by A. Then LK rand B, this is a random number generated by B. So it takes that number. So you have K init value, already initialization key is there. So it is going to XOR with that using E21 algorithm. So with the Bluetooth device address B and then Bluetooth device address A. Then you are going to generate a KAB, that is the link key AB. So here also on both the sides it is going to perform the same kind of operations. You are going to perform some XOR operations here and also here, and you are going to generate a key, that is a link key AB. So how you are going to create the link key? So this is the diagram shown. One second. Okay. So how to use this link key? So once you have generated the link key, so how the link key is going to be used? So the link key is used for both authentication as well as encryption. So you're going to use the link key for both authentication as well as encryption. So suppose A and B were already paired. So you have already paired the A and B keys, A and B devices, and KA be their common link key. So assume KA as the common link key. So now suppose A wishes to authenticate B. So for this purpose, it generates a random number rand A as a challenge and send it to B. Then the response computed by B is E1 of KAB, that is the link key, then random A, then Bluetooth device address B. So the response will be sent back to A, so that it confirms I am the correct device. You can send the file to me. So then how the hacking of the link key is going to happen? So it is possible to launch a dictionary kind of attack by sniffing each message involved in pairing and authentication. So when you are doing that pairing process and authentication process, it is possible to sniff. That means silently they are going to listen or observe the message exchanges which are involved between A and B. So they are going to launch a dictionary kind of attack by just silently listening or observing to the message exchanges involved in pairing and authentication. In that way, you can hack the link key. So this is the authentication process, random A. So A, random number A will be generated, that will be sent as challenge to B. So it uses KAB, then Bluetooth device address B, then E1 is the algorithm it uses. It creates some function, and then the response will be sent back to A. So this is generation and use of link key. So how the link key is generated and used means there are three stages you have to explain. One is creating the initialization key, then the second stage is creating the link key, and the third stage is authentication. All these three steps you need to explain. So how the link key is generated or created. So these attacks enable an eavesdropper to obtain the link key KAB. So there are some examples how attacks have happened. So Kabir was one of the earliest proof of concept worms that targeted the Symbian Series 60 OS. So operating system, Symbian operating system was attacked or targeted by Kabir, which was one of the earliest worms you can see, which was unleashed in June 2004. It was authored by an international virus writing group, 29A. So there are groups for virus writing also, international virus writing group. So it is 29A. So the worm attempts to discover other Bluetooth enabled phones set in discoverable mode. So what is the function of this worm is it is going to attempt to discover, it is going to discover other Bluetooth enabled phones set in discoverable mode. Already the phones will be in discoverable mode. So that kind of Bluetooth enabled phones it is going to discover. When it finds such a phone, it sends the worm payload in a SIS file. So whenever it finds that kind of Bluetooth enabled and in the discoverable mode phone, it finds such kind of phone, then it sends a one payload. So the data will be transferred onto that particular phone in a SIS file format. So the receiver needs to accept and install the file. So without any knowledge, the receiver accepts that and installs that file. So its payload was mostly benign, typically displaying Carib on the screen. So it looks like a benign or a normal message, normal data. It just displays a name on the screen as Carib. So however, continuous scanning for new victims by an infected phone depletes battery power. So it is going to reduce the battery power of that particular phone. So common barrier, which appeared in March 2005, was the first worm to spread through both Bluetooth and MMS. So this was the first worm which was spread through the Bluetooth, so as well as MMS, common barrier. So like Kabir, it targeted Symbian smartphones only. So smartphones which were using Symbian operating system, so that was targeted like Kabir. One is Kabir, the other one is common barrier. Both are the worms which are used on the Bluetooth devices. So this is about the Bluetooth, how the Bluetooth technology is advantages as well as how the worm attack is going to happen in the Bluetooth technology and how to avoid it. So what are the procedure to create the link key, all those things we have seen in this particular part. So in the next part also we have one more thing, botnet. Botnet is an army of comprised computers or bots connected to the internet and remotely controlled by botmaster. It is nothing but a network kind of thing. It's an army of compromised computers. So computers which are going to compromise with each other for the communication purpose. So it's a combined or group of computers, compromised computers, or we call it as bots connected to the internet. So it is connected to the internet and remotely controlled by botmaster. So you're going to have a server kind of thing called as botmaster, but remotely it is going to control all these compromised computers. So the earliest botnet nets were a collection of zombies that participated in DDoS attacks. So denial of service attacks. The emergence of botnet is closely linked to the motive of financial gain that is behind many recent cyber attacks. So this, what is the motto of this botnet is, it's okay. So mainly the motive will be the financial gain. Uh, they are often used to send spam mails on behalf of third parties. For example, bot programs may contain keyloggers and other forms of spyware that capture sensitive personal information such as passwords and credit card numbers and send these to the botmaster. So botnets have also been used as an extortion tool. Pay up or your website will be bombarded by a DDoS attack. So how does a computer become a bot? Means the bots are created in ways similar to many of the traditional Trojan or worm or virus infections. A common vector of propagation is nothing but email. So which contains contains an infected attachment. So another is through downloading a malicious web page containing scripts that exploit vulnerabilities in certain browsers or application software. So either through the email or through the web pages, they may be able to attack. So a bot infection may also be propagated by bots themselves by scanning the internet for vulnerable machines. So finally, open file shares and IRC, that is internet relay chat, multicast messages have also been widely used to spread the infections. So one important difference between a bot and a computer infected by a traditional worm or virus or Trojan is that a bot needs to communicate with specific nodes in the bonnet to receive fresh commands. So a bot may be ordered to send spam or to launch a DDoS attack on site abc.com beginning at 14 hours. That is the date and the time they'll specify. Then some of the nodes in the botnet play the role of command and control, that is servers. They receive commands from the bot master and disseminate these to the rest of the bots. So how exactly it is going to spread means it is through the emails and the web pages, and Botmaster is going to control all these activities. So they're going to specify the timing. So within that timing, in that date, some message is going to come. So that message is going to be launched on the particular website and it will be under the control of them. So that is the Botmasters or botnet. So there's a case study. The Storm botnet was first detected in January 2007. So its other names are PCOM, Nuver, and Zelatin. Bots in the Storm botnet are infected in stages. The most common vectors for propagating the primary infection appear to be email or infected websites. Email was sent with sensational subject lines like, so you will be having the tendency to open that mail. So like that subject, in the subject of the email, the messages will be coming. So 2:30 die, a storm batters Europe. So we don't know whether it is correct news or fake news and all. Just we want to click on that because of seeing that numbers, 230 persons died as a storm for the effect of storm in Europe. So just we click on that particular this thing, email. So that's the impact of what kind of bot like messages they are going to send through the email. So likewise, users were lured into downloading free but infected files from websites containing music of various pop artists. So that is one kind, email. Through email, they'll send such kind of messages or emails, infected emails. Without knowingly, the users will click on that email. Same way, what the users are going to do is download the free music which are by the various pop artists, which will be infected files. Without knowing, they will download that kind of music files for the free thing. So from the websites, from that also the infected files are going to come. So the primary infection instructed the victim to join the Storm Hornet embedded in the overnet P2P network. Once part of the botnet, the bat was programmed to receive the second and the subsequent injections of malicious code. So one of the injections instructed the bat to propagate email viruses. So another injection received some days later instructed the bat to launch a DDoS attack on a target specified by the bot master. So all these things will be monitored and controlled by a bot master. He will instruct the bots, individual bots, to do what at what time. So what kind of attack he has to do, how the files are need to be injected to the system, like that. So this is one case study, which is an example for Storm botnet. So till here we have completed with viruses and worms. So